Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm karenann McDonald. It's Friday. It is now the 21st of November. We're slowly creeping into that time of the year up here. We're just waiting for the snow. I'm watching each one of my mountains on either side of me going whiter and whiter. It just hasn't hit here yet. So anyway, so those of you that have it, I'm glad you've got it. I'm glad I don't. That's all I got to say right now. Anyway, so let's go on a little bit on to some really exciting subjects here. And when we talk about depression and anxiety, we shouldn't actually be depressed about that kind of stuff because there is so much here going on. A lot of people just don't realize that there are other ways to do coping. And it was one of the things, I remember when I was going into nursing, is that a lot of people, if you weren't depressed by the time you started, you sure were probably by the time you ended. And so a lot of actually people in those very high stress type of jobs are not taught coping mechanisms. They're not taught anything other than what are we looking at? Pharmaceuticals, more pharmaceuticals, and then you have to reevaluate more pharmaceuticals, when in essence, we need to look at not only different ways to look at coping mechanisms, but also to look at what are some of the things that we could be doing better and more, in here doing it prophylactically. So one of the things I'm going to go into a little bit of what I have here, and I put a little bit of an album and some different media I wanted to go over, and it's sitting on my karenann McDonald. I've got basically like a inner circle group. So if you haven't seen that, that's actually where I'm going to start going to right now, because people are getting stressed out, and we're using words like neurodivergence. We're looking at, neuroplasticity. We are looking at, post-traumatic stress, chronic post-traumatic stress, attention deficit, brain fog. All these things are coming in, not as far critically as maybe Alzheimer's and dementia, but I've looked after many of those people too. And over the years, I've actually seen people reverse it. Not only improve it, I've actually seen it totally reverse because it was actually misdiagnosed. I've seen people put into nursing homes several times with Alzheimer's and dementia, and we went in with our biofeedback machines and scanners and radionics and different devices we have, and we learned that it was actually things as simple as you can imagine food poisoning, botulism. How simple was that? And within a couple weeks, they regained it. And then they were stuck in a system they couldn't get out of. That was even worse, if you can imagine some of that. So those are some of the things that we wanted to take a look at. And so I want to talk about those things, and I'm going to be keeping an eye a little bit here on the chat room. So welcome, Healing Touch. How are you? Nice to see you too. So I'm going to, look at some of these different things, and we're going to go into my inner circle here, and we're going to look at what we talked about here, because there are some critical things I will put in those inner circles, but there's more importantly, how do we start? And one of the things I'm just going to go through a little bit of ideas here. And if you need to take some notes or have some questions, certainly do that. If it's something that you're concerned about yourself or a family member or a loved one or someone in your, tribal little soul community here, then send them to me. I'm happy to assess a lot of people. I am willing to meet people, even if they need a 10-minute quick consultation, that's fine, or initial consultation. We can do really short ones like that and just see and evaluate where people are at. But when you start looking at some of the different things, we're going to go look at my data truth group here. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so those of you that aren't on it here, or you're not on Facebook, if you are on Facebook, this is where one of my other ones are. So I've got probably about 40,000 people between all my scattered Facebook groups. But in here, this one has actually been growing and growing. Actually, I went from I think we gained 1,000 people in the last 2 weeks because people are starting to hear things. Maybe they're ready for it. But I'm also surprised that actually Facebook is actually recommending it on here. So one of the things we're going to go in here, and I want to go through a little bit of what my background actually is here, because one of the things is we could be looking at stress. You could be looking at a acute trauma. It could be from a motor vehicle accident. It could be a head injury. But how are the different things that we can look at other than looking at the allopathic pharmaceutical medical models that we're seeing? So we're going to talk a little bit about what I call Russian or Ayurvedic or traditional Chinese medicine. We're going to look at herbs, essences, crystals, gems, frequencies, aromatherapy, and different things. Yes, enemas and colon hydrotherapy come into these things. Did you know that? Also, a nice little massage, reflexology, always with essential oils. And even V-steams using the right herbs and oils could do that as well. So this can affect everything, because when you're in chronic pain or you're depressed and we don't know how to get out of it, it really is, we tend to more hurt ourselves, in there. We're eating improperly. We're not sleeping properly. It's a big snowball that a lot of people get into, and they simply don't know how to get out of it. So we're going to go look through some of those really simple things here, how to deal with it. And then we'll go through a little bit of question and answer if you have it later. So one of the very big things in here I love looking at is when people are looking at what can we do? One of the first things I always recommend is looking at what oils are some of the best essential oils for depression. Essential oils, and I want you to think of it. If I said now, I want you to think of cutting open a lime and bringing the two pieces up to your nose. You're already just all of a sudden, energetically, all of you will basically raise their head back and just actually take a deep inhale, like you actually are smelling that. And whether you do it for a fresh orange or a lime or a lemon or a grapefruit, those are some of the best things you can possibly do to eliminate depression. Lavender can be a really iffy kind of a fun one. And the reason why is that in here, some people have to really like lavender and they don't. But what most people use it for is for calming. It's like chamomile tea. So all of these oils could be added into a tea. You could put them, let's say, directly on the skin. I don't know why people are like, oh, we got to put it in diffusers. Best way is to actually put it into a diffuser, not a nebulizer. Again, the chamomiles, all those things are amazing, amazing different things that we can look at. And again, there are some different companies. Young Living makes one called Peace and Calming. It's my favorite smell probably on the whole entire planet. It's a combination of putting things together, and it actually changes the EEG, or your brain waves, from being in an anxiety-ridden state to being something like, wow, whatever, right? So we're going to come back to that. So these are some of the things as well in here. So it's about how do we perceive things? How do we calm down the inflammation in the brain? Okay, any kind of an injury, even through the back, could create a torque or a subluxation, and that will affect the entire system. So we're going to talk a little bit about why we use biofeedback and why, again, we're going to do head to toe reflexology and light back massages, or you can do it to yourself, because it's, again, setting up and turning on those breaker switches, which is so, so critically important. So those are one of the things in here that we can look at. Again, a lot of people, when I look at people and they come into my center and I talk to you on Zoom, and 99% of the time it is on Zoom or FaceTime or Google Hangouts or something like that. Even Telegram has got, a camera that we can sit and talk with. Worst thing ever, I've got on phone and people have sent me their pictures ahead of time or whatever we need. But when I'm looking at people, I'm looking at you critically. I'm looking to see the clarity of the eyes that we're looking for in iridology. So when I'm sitting with you, I'm looking literally into your eyes. And through the sclerology and stuff, I'm looking at the clarity. I'm making sure there's not a whole bunch of, junk or discoloring, especially around the pupil. You'll see that that's a huge part of it. And when we're looking around in the iridology, what it correlates to, of course, is your colon health. So you can see that little colon chart here. I'm going to just blow it up a little bit more because it's my favorite chart basically in the world. I want you to see that colon chart here. You see the colors as you go around the colon. Well, those are the colors of the chakras, guys. So the more we do animus and the more we do colonics, guess what? Everything that goes to the head up there is going to be reflexology. It's going to start nourishing more. Okay, the biofilm will be removed. The parasites, the candida, the yeast, the diverticuli, that stuff over there, the heavy metals are going to be pulled out. And the more you assimilate it, the more it goes head to toe. And that's what we want you going in here. A lot of people neglect to look at their dental health. So a lot of times people will come to me and they've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 mercury fillings. Oh my gosh, that's one of the biggest causes of, any kind of mental and emotional disturbances, especially these days with all the 5-6G walking around in us. So those are things as well. I have you stick out your tongue. We're doing tongue analysis. If you're depressed, you're going to see that the tip of your tongue is going to be actually kind of like beveled a bit. It actually won't be straight. It won't be smooth. It will be actually dented. And you'll see that it will have bifurcations sometimes in it. You'll see the crackings. Again, indicative, even down to your nails, we'll take a look at. So all these things have got to be functioning 100%, you guys. So then we come to the reflexology, and whether you do it or someone else does it for you, doing essential oils, a great way is not just to go do reflexology. My gosh, that hurts. What you're supposed to do is put on 2, 3, 4 essential oils, one of them being peppermint and stuff like that, and then put a little bit of castor oil or coconut oil or something on. I love castor oil. And then put a hot, wet towel on. And what you're going to see is that your little toes there, those little, this little piggy came to market and all that sort of stuff, is that is actually where the head is. That's where our thinking. So even doing a really nice aromatherapy, foot massage, a little bit of castor oil, but the key again is put the hot, wet towels on and then put a plastic bag on. So you want to drive it up into the system, not just put it on and have it evaporate. Then when we get into the different meridians, I want you to look at how many different acupuncture meridians are coming upstairs. I mean, it's like an elevator. And a lot of those floors just don't work properly. So that's why I do the assessment of the 12 meridians, right? And even when you start opening that, and that's another reason why we will do things like facial steams, or again, using, let's say, a peri-steam or a chair steam, what you guys call yoni or vaginal, or for men, an A steam. So take a look at that, because a lot of this, and there's so many, we're like little Russian cute little, Cupid dolls here. We are in layers and layers. We've got that whole physical, mental, emotional, etheric, all those different layers play into that. So, if we're going to start looking at crystals and stuff like that, well, then we're going to start looking at higher vibrations, selenite, roses, amethyst crystal beds, that sort of thing. So those are some other crystals. Again, putting crystals in your water, putting essential oils into the water. You'd be amazed how one of the best antidepressants, like I said, is putting a couple drops of actually peppermint in either hot tea or just even in your water and getting used to that. You'd be amazed what doing 3, 4 drops will do over the day. You feel alert. You feel vibrant. One of the things I wanted to go into here is something called the Noget healing frequencies. How many of you have heard of Paul Noget? Do you guys know who Dr. Paul Noget is? He's actually quite well known for, as we were talking about last week, a little bit about the ears and what we call auricular or ear reflexology. But Paul Noget was actually pretty amazing. And in here, one of the things he started going on was that it was kind of like solfeggio tones. So it actually was a little bit more precise than just going into using those tuning forks. And in here, one of the things is that we were going to look at different frequencies. So in here, kind of like, crystal bowls and all that sort of fun stuff here, is that you would see actually, we would go in and take a look at the frequencies here as we bring them up again. Let's look at that top frequency. Okay, 73 hertz is the emotional reaction. It works on the hormone and the endocrine system, muscles, headaches, depression. Oh my gosh. Can you be surprised at that? So one of the things that we have here, and I'm going to play it here in a few minutes. I'm going to play actually all the solfeggio tones and all the Noget tones here for you. So one of the things, again, is that a lot of people don't realize that these even exist. So just by having the different sounds and the tones, we can actually change things. So I want you to see going into Noget frequency G, 146 hertz, the intellectual organs. What would that be? Oh no, our brain, our memory, the psychiatric or psychological or neurological disorders. Because usually what is this from? Inflammation. And if we have inflammation, what is that from? Usually a low-grade bacterial infection or a fungus infection or something along those lines. So those are some of the things that we need to look at, is this low-grade inflammation. And those could be from childhood injections that they gave us all in school. not just the last 5 years. Oh my gosh. Did you know they've discovered that all those childhood injections we got, that they basically ended up stored in the cerebral basal ganglion of all of our backs and the vertebrae by the spinal cord, and the going into the CNS, or your central nervous and the cerebral spinal fluid. Oh, is that a surprise or what? Let's go into one down there. Look at the colors. Look what we're dealing with. Frequency 292. The ectoderm, which is the external layer here. So we could have anything from teeth, gums, skin, all sorts of things that could be trigger pointed in there. And so those are some of the things that we need to deal with. And then we're going to go into frequency B, 584 hertz. Oops, nutrition. Surprise, surprise. What's in that endoderm? That's your parasympathetic. That's the neuropathy. That's the whole small, large intestine, all those sort of things. And so there we go. We're going to be seeing all those things like edema. A lot of people are having issues, auditory things, lymphatics not draining, feeling bloated. Okay, and then as we move up, frequency C, 1168, into the mesoderm, which is the middle layer. Now we're getting into those muscles and ligaments, tendons, and the myofascia, interstitium that was just above that. All of those things, all the muscles. And where does it go? Heart, lung, kidneys, ovaries, testes, guts again. Guts again here, guys. It always comes down to the guts. Then we get into the D, 23, look at the number, 2336 hertz. Everything to do with balancing the left and the right side of the brain. Oh, we don't want to be exactly bipolar. We want to have basically integration. You want to have a trinary system. You want to get all the 12 senses actually working there. So those are some of the things that actually we need to take a look at. Okay, and then the last one is frequency E, 4672. Again, you are not going to have tuning forks at this for the most part. You're only going to have a couple. So here we need to look at using different things or sound generators or different biofeedbacks or radionic devices that can work with this. And this is where we're getting into the pain control, because the more pain you are, the more depressed you are. And the more depressed you are, the more pain you have. Okay, so then we get into nerves, spinal cords, all sorts of things, arthritis, chronic pain, all that sort of things. Those are triggering. Now I'm going to actually play some of these for you. And we are going to put each one of these in, and I'm going to have you take a listen to that frequency. So let me just I'm going to add all of these in here, and then we're going to listen to them play. So we're going to run all those different noje tones for you guys, and we are going to play that. So let's all listen to that for a minute here, and then we're going to. So one of the things, the gain is coming in here. So I'm going to put them on, and you guys are going to have a little listen to this. Okay, so this is now running those noje tones. Okay, so you can hear how well it's starting to work. And there we go. How is everyone jumping in? You can't see anything. We're going to go over here, but can't see the video. But we're going to try that again here on the video. So again, we're going to go back in and take a look at some of this here. And the screen was blacked out. Not cool. So let's go try that again here in a sec. Gotta love Facebook, right? Okay, let's go try this again and see if we can go through those on here. You should be able to see it now. Okay, so let's just take a look at this again here. So we're going to go up into the noje tones here, guys, and that's what I'm playing right now. So again, we are going to go into the 73 hertz, the 146 hertz, the 292, the 584, 1168, 2336 and 4672 hertz are being played. Okay, so that's where we are right now. And so those are some of the things, in here. Hopefully you guys can see it now. As I was talking a little bit about the eyes, the iridology, the colon, and how the colon responds to the chakras, on the colors and the minerals, back to the teeth, to the integrity of the spine, to reflexology. All of these are really, really important that we're looking at. Okay, so those are some of the things too. We'll go back and we'll look a little bit more at the oils here. So let's just flip through that. Take a listen while we've got this just playing here in the background. Okay, so in here, these are the nausea healing frequencies that I'm playing here in the background. A lot of people too, what they don't realize is that they have no idea that the integrity of how your emotional and mental health goes is that we are like batteries. In order to have that, we need to be alkaline. So depression, like any disease, doesn't have to be cancer. It could be just simply not feeling well, is when the system slides into a hyperacidic condition. For us, that hyperacidity is going to be here on the litmus paper, right here at the end of where it says hydra. You're going to look at the tape, and you normally should be 7.5 to 8, which is basically the last two colors there. So that's sort of the idea of the colors of the chakras. The only way you can measure this at home if you don't have a meter is to get either sticks or to get the tape. And that is the first key to getting rid of any kind of upset or depression, is that we need to be full of high energy, and that translates into volts. Yay! So I'm hoping you're enjoying some of the frequencies in the background here. Again, water, food, concentrate on alkaline foods. Alkaline food charts are out there. The more you're seeing things, that's why these things like lemonade or the Master Cleanser works. Using these type of things, apple cider vinegar, aloe vera juice, coconut water, because they're trying to alkalize the system. Most people, when they're depressed, and there isn't any treatment center unless I've gone to a holistic one and been part of them, is they're always giving you acidic food. It doesn't matter where I ever trained as a nurse or went into addictions, or we went to AA centers, or we went to NA centers, or even to sweat lodges and stuff that were done on the bands and reserves. Coffee, bread, wheat, donuts, cookies. How the hell are you ever going to heal from that? That's what causes this in the first place. So part of it is getting the right food, and the right food is into vibration here. I want you to see this chart. It's actually called the Pyramid of Energy, Vibration and Consciousness. And it tells you need to focus on the alkaline foods. And those charts are very easy to Google and download. And again, this is another sort of urinalysis strip I wanted you to see here. And that urinalysis strip there is actually a little bit more detailed than just the pH. It gives you pH, sugars, proteins, blood, all sorts of things with a little bit more of a wealth of information. So those are some of the things in there. So like I said, check these out. What are those high alkalizing foods that are going to make you feel more vibrant? It tells you artichokes, carrot juice, celery juice, lemon and limes, getting that into there, alfalfa sprouts, any kind of sprouts. And now we're going to get into those blue foods, blueberries, blackberries, all those things. I don't know if you know about this, but actually soaking figs and dates in water is really helpful. And one of the best things is grapes. Dark, not the green, the dark purple grapes and grape juice. Do that for 2-3 days. The other thing is actually doing watermelon, getting some organic watermelon and pineapple. Start cutting that up. Have that where that's, a large part, like take 1 to 2 bowls a day for 3-4 days and see what happens. Put that papaya in. Put those in. Make your fruit salads. It makes a big difference because underneath here is what they're showing, the sad American diet or the Canadian standard diets. All of this. It's all based on here. It's all crap. And we wonder why people don't feel well. So that's a really sharp key. So I said, look at them. There are actually healthy food pyramids. Flip it. Right? Get into a state of where you're feeling great. Biofeedback is great too. I have probably 24 frequency devices here. There are some that can just play solfeggio tones like what I was doing, just Noj, just whatever. These do not have to work with AI. And I just dealt with this again in one of the groups today, is that AI, and we've been doing biofeedback forever before these AIs came out in the last couple of years or 2 years, is that basically it's always optional and you have to pay for it. And it's usually just because it will give you some like cute little graph or some pie chart or something. It does not connect. Ours do not connect, and you can't do that because you can't run it simultaneously. Anyway, the other thing I always suggest is people go looking, doing what's called a liver gallbladder flush. So you can go do these like basically liver gallbladder flushes, which has got lots of magnesium in it because all those little pills are magnesium pills. In other words, homemade Epsom salt pills. Didn't think of that. These work. This is called a liver gallbladder flush. That's basically you're taking a glass at 6 p.m., 8 p.m., and you could just go again at 10. And you can repeat it if you want in the morning with a little lemon juice or grapefruit juice. So some of these are really quick, really fast, because we got to remember what we're saying and what we're doing with it, whether it's biofeedback or talking or blessing your food. Look at the messages, and that's what happens. And that's why tuning forks are great, but they're limited. Certain things are great, but they're limited. So the essential oils are really powerful. So take a look at some of these. Make sure you're getting spring water. Findaspring.org. I want it to look at the emotional centers of the body. Oh my gosh, did you know that they exist? I know they exist because I have them charted. Okay. So a lot of things similar to, Louise Hayes or neuro-linguistic programming or tapping or whatever in here. A lot of times people say, well, that left side is connected to the mother side, the matriarchal line. The father's is on the right. Okay. Are we bringing things in, or are we having to release things? Are we in fight or flight? How are we responding to things? So a lot of people, where does it tighten up? Everyone tightens, not always in the same place. Some people feel it in their hearts if they haven't gotten over sorrow or sadness or their, heartstrings, or they feel broken. They may have throat or thyroid things because they just can't talk about things. Even talking about it to yourself, or talking on a record, or talking and listening to it. It's what part of biofeedback is. You have things where we have affirmations where you can actually talk into biofeedbacks and actually make like a prayer or a mandala or an affirmation for the day, and you play it back to yourself. That's another form of biofeedback that I do. One of the things here too, where we get anger, we tend to have things like, liver issues, right? And it could be ourselves, or it could be someone else. It could be resentment. Again, all these things. Spleen is actually very common. How many people ever said, oh, I think you got a spleen issue? Well, I check for people on the scanners because quite often it comes up because people feel absolutely bloody guilty, right? About judgment. They don't feel accepted, all those things. And they stuff things in, right? And we feel rejected. So we go into that, survival mode. And that's where a lot of people and women tend to have a lot of issues. Right? That's why we have people steaming. That's why we have you doing aromatherapy and then castor oil and putting that on your tummy, putting castor oil packs. All that stuff gets stuffed down, and we need to be able to release that. And that's why actually enemas and colonics come in. So there we go. Where are we stuffing it in the body? Is it in the head? Is it in the neck? Are we carrying shoulder pain? All those things. Knees, being more flexible. We got to be able to let go of some of these issues because they're really taking a toll on people. Ankle issues, not wanting to walk forward, just wanting to stay where you are, not being flexible, letting go. So again, these are other things that we look for on my scanners. Some people will feel actually like hopeless. Some people think they've got voice chatter. A lot of people are hearing things and no fault of their own. A lot of people are hearing the oscillations of these different towers, which is annoying as all the heck. So it's not tinnitus. You're actually responding to the environment. So one of the things in here, whether people are, again, anxiety, there's a whole thing about colon. You will see that most people depressed or anxiety issues or anything along that line, do you know there's always usually some sort of digestive issue? It's bloating or cramping or inability to digest things like allergies. So that's something that we see an awful lot of, right? So these are all the areas that we actually scan through, which is, I like looking at it because it gives us a different awareness of what's going on, right? Being open to things here. So one of the other things too is, again, looking at the scan, looking at the integrity of the spine. So it's not just the spine, it's the organ that's inside. And then something up here, very, very small. I know it's hard to see, but when we scan for people, every one of those vertebrae has several different either tuning forks or frequencies that we use off of our biofeedback generators, off our sound generators. So you're using it almost like a sound TENS as opposed to a Dr. Ho thing. And then again, you can look at scan the actual acupuncture point and see what needs to be looked at. Because a lot of times it's not necessarily in there. It could be into the acupuncture point. So this is where we get into the body is crystal, it's liquid crystal, it's a piezoelectrical, and that's why we have to like pump up people and basically hook ourselves up, kind of like a battery booster. One of the things I talk about as well is neurovisor, and I don't want people getting freaked out here. It's not a bad LED. What it's doing is when we combine 40 hertz on the lights like Dr. Emoto's will create those fractals or sacred geometry. And you could do this actually without the lights if you choose, or put the lights at a comfortable distance. So if you want to have them up close, you can actually see fractals in it will produce different, sacred geometry things that you can look at that is known to stimulate the brain. So if it's not something that you want to do, you can simply take that part off or shut it down, or just go into one of the really relaxing sound modes. And again, these are designed to work with the brain and help with gamma states at 40 hertz. So what we're doing is if there's a problem in one of the EEGs that people have picked up, because they are like a computer, you're on a loop system. So these are some of the things here. Another thing I like to work with, this is one of my favorite books in the world too, Vibrational Raindrop, which is using tuning forks and essential oils. So again, that's where you can use the combination of things in here. Of course, you're going to go, what the hell does this have to do with depression? Everything to do with anxiety. So one of the things you can see in the center is like a crock pot where you're actually heating up herbs and oils and crystals and whatever else you want. So you could put your amethyst and your rose crystals and stuff like that, except selenite. Put your salts in and everything, and just stand over it like a facial steam. You can actually sit on them. Those are your yoni kits, or make one at home, or like a sitz bath. You would be amazed what 20 minutes will do to you. So again, it's about herbs, essential oils, putting your mineral salts in, your cell salts in, even your crystals could be used for that. So if you're not aware of this, excellent modality for doing that. And again, make yourself one at home, or look at my albums where we have this. And again, biofeedback, I've been doing this, and this is one of the other systems I've used for about 30 years. Again, just calming the mind down. But maybe, like I said, we are taking a look at it clinically. We are assessing what is your serotonin level? What is your oxytocin level? What are the neurotransmitters doing? Things like that. So that's actually called brain entrainment, where you could actually listen to a sound like a solfeggio tone or a frequency tuning fork, and again, get the brain to calm down. And you can do it with or without basically any kind of accessories. So we can actually just play the music, or you can hook up to the music, or you can put sensors on. There are so many forms of biofeedback, like literally hundreds. So on here, also referred to as neurobiofeedback. So this is actually where you can get into tapping, and it could be used for depression, attention deficit, even migraines and headaches. And that's where actually using essential oils and tapping can come in. And this is where we're going to get into the biofield and the piloerection. And then we can actually add to it rather than just gathering it, start tapping and doing acupressure for those points. So that's another form we can go into. And what we're trying to do is basically achieve what's called self-regulation, autonomy, sovereignty, and heart rate variability. Oh my gosh, what a concept. Okay, so when you have a stress or, mode right now, frustration, anxiety, whatever it is, you are producing actually something that we can measure. And what we want to do is get you into a self-regulated rhythm. And that is where you're in a state of gratitude and appreciation and actually relaxation. So those are what we're trying to do when we're doing these different sounds or lights or herbs or oils or tinctures, So again, we can measure that. It's easy to look at, very, very simple. And we're getting it back into a state of, coherency. We want that state of coherency, right? And that's what we want to do, is get people into there, and then also get away from what's, bothering people. I put this up today on one of my Facebooks, and people are like, oh my gosh, I really love this. This is actually, just to give you an idea of all the minerals and vitamins and where they go to. So guess what happens if you don't check your vitamins and minerals, either on a biofeedback device, or you do hair, or you send it away, or you go see a naturopath. On here, what you're looking at is look at the organs and where they go to. So all you need to do is have a vitamin B deficiency because you've got candida, or you got a tapeworm, and all your serotonin and your dopamine and all those things are being eaten live. Okay. Getting some, soluble fat stuff, all these things, all the major channels here are all connected to a state of health. If you don't have 100% complement, like having 97 cells in your battery inside internally, that is basically a chemical imbalance. Not that any other doctors ever looked for it in my life when I took, psychiatric nursing. Okay, so those are some of the things I wanted to sort of go into and see what is happening. So I want you to see if that makes any sense to you now. Okay, so anyway, let's take a look at it. So now it's looking good. Is that making sense to a lot of you guys? When I'm showing how there's a connection. So again, if I had someone in here and we wanted to play just those noje tones, we're going to play this and we're going to let it run for about a minute each. We're going to play these noje tones and we're going to see what happens. I want you to see how it's different. So we're going to play solfeggio tones. I'm then going to play chakra tones today, and then I'm going to play noje tones again. So you guys ready for this? I hope you've got headphones or earbuds at home, because it truly, truly does make a difference. So what happens when someone's actually quite depressed? What's going to happen? We will see it in the biofield. So some of us that see energies, I tend to see people that are higher energy. I like seeing those purples and blues and kind of like sparkly things around people. When they're depressed, you will see earthy tones, grounded. It's the red, the browns, the oranges, almost like fall colors now. Okay, you'll see a lot of these kind of tones here. We don't want to be seeing those dark, dark tones, okay? That's not the healthiest thing I've ever seen. If someone's walking to you like this, kind of like, I feel drained, all that yellow, I feel drained. I feel exhausted. That's what it comes out to. So in here, we want to get into a higher state where we're getting those purples, pinks, and whites, okay? That's actually mine today. So, in here, you want to see that people come out and they're like a little white light here. And you've got the purples and everything else because your biofield is doing there. So let's take a look to see, if someone was not feeling very well, let's play those noje tones. So let's play those basically tones and see what happens to you. Let's try that for a minute. Okay, I hope you guys can all hear this. So remember, color, light, and sound. Okay, so close your eyes for me. And then on the replay, what you can do is actually put a glass of water near your speaker or put it in between the headphones. So what are you guys noticing? Okay, so those are the noje tones. Then what we're going to do, we're going to go into the solfeggio tones, right? We're going to go into those frequencies. Okay, so let's switch those off and let's now play the other ones that we have. We're going to go into all the solfeggio tones here. So we're going to play solfeggio tones here. So let's do that, shall we? Notice they're slightly different. Notice what you notice in your body. I can tell the difference. Now let's take some of those incredible things. We've looked at that. Let's look at chakra tones now. So again, all different things here. Now we're just going to play this really quietly back here for a minute. And we're going to let this just kind of put that over here. Now, one of the things when we talk about, a lot of people are having trouble saying, I can't feel this stuff for the piloerections and stuff like that. Okay, we call it frisson. I've been calling it matrix energetics. It's playing with the matrix. You can get simply an essential oil here. And again, citruses are usually really great antidepressants. Did you know that? So lemon, lime, orange, grapefruit, or blends of citrus that you can make your own. So one of the things in here, I always suggest is put some on. I always look at putting in my water and smell it. You need it to get up into here. And I'm going to show you some really cool things here that we have as well. I'm going to show you the books and I'm going to show you where to look for this stuff. So in here, what I usually suggest is put your essential oils in and put, all you need is a little dab of actually castor oil here. Okay, just a little bit. You don't need a lot. That's a tiny little amount here. And what you're going to do, let's do this at home. So even if you don't have essential oils and crystal or anything like that, just start rubbing your hands. Now, one of the things when we're teaching people about having to feel the energies, okay, is you can get music or whatever, but some people say put your left hand out and just keep gathering the energy through. One of the things is that you can be cleansing each one of these different systems or meridians. That's what we do when we have a smudge bowl. So when we take the smudge bowl and you're putting incense or the cedarwood or the sandalwood, what are we doing? We're blowing it in and we're cleaning off the energies. So part of in First Nations tradition, because they didn't have essential oils, so they started burning, basically the sage, the sweetgrass, the tobacco, and all that, is you would stand over it. Most people don't know that, is that you actually were supposed to stand over it, lift your feet, and clear the chakras, and so that you could ground properly. This is not about throwing stuff here. When you want to smudge and clean properly, you put your feet over the smudge bowl and you lift your foot and you get the feet clean. And then you bring it up through the system and into the actual organs or the chakra systems, and then even inhale it. And then even on the eyes so that you see in truth, speak truth, and cleanse that and purge it. But smoke is not going to do the same thing as incense, which is not going to do the same thing as a hydrosol, which is not going to do the same thing as an essential oil, which is certainly not going to do the same thing as someone that is doing steaming. So steam smudging is huge. That lifts everything off the weight of the world because you're now going into the biofield. Everyone wants to work on this 3D little meat suit avatar. You're forgetting that most of your information and shit that you're picking up from everyone else is out here. If you're meshing with people and you're picking up their issues, actually smudging or doing the essential oils and hydrosols, you need to be cleansing this part. That's why it really is really important to take either baths or showers and cleanse off every day with the water, and especially salt and salt scrubs. So salt scrubs are amazing for uplifting people for depression. So those are some of the different ideas that we have here. One of the different things I wanted to bring up was also the tuning forks. Okay, getting a couple of tuning forks. Now, what have you got to say there that I have an intention when I'm applying into my essential oils, and I always get an excellent response. If you're doing essential oils properly, if you take an essential oil and really put it on and you activate it properly, which is 1, 2, 3 clockwise, and then you go like this and you go to the crown. Right now I can feel it. Okay. And the other thing is using copper. Have you ever seen why some of us that when we do massage, we have the like little copper fingers, they come in and we actually go like this. And you would just like, whoa, it tingles through the whole body because we're regrounding people with the copper. So copper wires, when you get those head massagers, they're really kind of cool. I'll bring it out maybe next time it's in the massage room. But that is one of the things that we use as well, because you can feel that tingling, you're getting that excitement. So when we go back to doing things, let's say like, biofield healing or piloerection or frisson or whatever you want to call it, right? Tai Chi, Qigong, prana, call it whatever you want. Spirit cleansing, whatever you want to call it, is that you've got to be doing the whole entire area. The other thing too with tuning forks, if you want to have bioresonance, you've got to have the same fork on each side. It's not just about using a tuning fork here and doing this kind of stuff, if you're trying to do bioresonance, you better have two of the same forks there. Otherwise, there's also different things that go on. If this is a 432 and this is a 528, it's not going to be the same thing. Again, this has an effect as well. When you have people that have depression, one of the things you have, these are my fun ones, okay, is using essential oils again on the face, on the ears, and taking these essential oils. So remember that song of the spine I was just showing you with all the colors of the spine? Well, these are the tuning forks for each one of them. But let's say we want to go up into here. A tuning fork that has no weights vibrates up this way. A tuning fork that has weights gets weighted down. It comes down. So when I want to actually do this, on here, headaches, tension, depression, can start going into any organ and running that through here again. These are amazing. You can actually do the ear reflexology or auricular therapy like that. So these are some really cool ideas in there. Now, one of the things I wanted to bring up into people's attention, one is called releasing emotional patterns. So all these things of depression, anxiety are all in this incredible book. Okay. And by the way, this entire book is coded in my biofeedback because I did this. Okay. So we can take your ear points or auricular points where you might be having depression, mother, father issues. So all those charts I showed you where people stuff everything in, these charts are in here. Okay. So this is something that you might want to get. These are on Amazon. Okay. We teach muscle testing, but that's really what a biofeedback is, right? Rather than using pendulums that can get interfered with now. But these are all the charts. So these are all the charts that we have in the biofeedbacks that are scanned for. So in here, one of the things is we can have suppression as opposed to depression or feeling lifeless, and there's always the reverse or the 0 point or what's the other side of it on the other side of it, right? So if I'm looking at something like depression, what's the opposite of it? Anyone want to guess? Take a word. Okay. The opposite of being depressed is being what? Alive. Right? And that people have to say, I'm glad I'm alive. I'm glad I'm here. The more you say it, the more you repeat it. It takes sometimes 21 days or longer to start repeating it. So you actually not only believe it, but you actually start acting upon it. So one of the things in there is one of my favorite things is to use peace and calming for depression. And did you know, lo and behold, there's a depression point. So where am I going to put it? Where's the alarm point that we're doing that? And so one of the interesting things on the depression part is that you're going to see it. It is actually on the body. And most people don't know that. We have a brain point in here and we have depression points. So that's one of the things. But the depression point, do you want to know where it is? It's right behind here, right behind the ears. So that it's kind of like when you put perfume on, that's where you would go to put your essential oils and actually hold those points. Okay. Another one is actually holding the back of the neck and also like cranial sacral. Okay. One of the most incredible things. Do you guys know what Vitaflex is? It's a Tibetan form. So it's actually where you touch, you roll over on your cuticles and move up. Okay. So we will teach people not acupressure or acupuncture. What we're doing is this is much more piezoelectric. So you can do those acupuncture points. Same thing up here, putting your essential oils on your feet, on your hand, and that's where you're going to start getting really big changes. So I wanted to show you one of my favorite books again. And how many people have you guys had the chance to go get the essential oils? So what we're going to do, I'm going to actually screen share with this because I found this online. My favorite book in the whole entire bloody world when you're learning oils is this. There's a whole section on emotions and depression. So one is how to apply these on the body, but there's a whole section here, if you can imagine, it says, guess what? Emotional issues, essential oils, spiritual, mental, and emotional issues, chapter 16. So that's what we're going to go over a little bit today. So where do we store all the trauma? Just like a computer, we take it in. We're like, video recorders, camera recorders. And so it stores in the amygdala and the hippocampus here. And so this is why The sense of smell is the most powerful thing, because the essential oils that cross into this blood-brain barrier up to here, right across, are those essential oils of frankincense, cedarwood, sandalwood, pine, spruce, fir, and getting into the lemon, limes, and all that. So all of these things, there's an entire section here on how to deal with it, whether it's abuse, you've been through trauma, whatever it might be, agitation, anger, all those things affect us. And so part of the things is the more alkaline you are, the more you absorb your herbs or oils. And this is where the importance of actually coming in and cleansing, because you want to be able to absorb that food or oil. So does that make sense to everyone? Just give me a thumbs up or a yes in the chat room so we know what we're doing here. So one of the things as well too is that we are looking at the essential oils, and we're going to go in here. So I really think this is so important that I want you to see this up close so that you get a really good grip on this, because very, very important here that we see this. So we're going to go into those detailed books there, just specifically, because again, so important here. And so hopefully you'll be able to see this, and it will screen share properly again, entire screen. Okay, so let's go in here. We're going to look at the essential oil book here. So one is, like I said, getting some of these on you. Very, very easy. Okay, it's not rocket science. You don't need to go to like massage school or aromatherapy school for this, or, you know, get an MD. There's the neuroauricular technique. And again, we talked about putting even essential oils just on your ears and doing your own ear reflexology. You can also use crystals or glass probes on the outside. Okay, so then we go into what's called the raindrop technique. So again, whether you put it on your feet, on the spine, hands, all sorts of things go in there. Because right now, that's what we need to do. We need to get a change of code. And so using all those citrus oils and stuff like that, and you can read which ones are some of the better ones. Okay, so they're using basil and cypress. All of these are foods, wintergreen, like lifesavers, peppermint, okay, all the different things you've had before. And again, it's really important. I'm just going to go back here again. Do you see how we're moving underneath under the brain stem, right? And doing similar to cranial sacral, just making sure that everything is open, everything is flowing. And again, the oils can act as taking down some of the viruses and bacteria, okay? It helps chelate out some of the toxins and the heavy metals. And again, you can customize it to whoever you want. But I want you to see this part in here, because very, very important that you're seeing that this can work on the emotional level here. Again, there's your energy centers here. So every color, and again, we don't need to take methylene blue, because guess what? We have blue essential oils. Did you know that? Yes, we do. It's called blue tansy. Another one is your chamomiles, your German and Roman chamomile. We have got actually bluish, purplish essential oils. We have got oils for every color, by the way, or from the plant that's in every one of those colors. So those are really, really, really important here. And so when you go into these sections, and I'm putting this into the chat room here too, right? This is how important it is, because you've got to be able to cross the blood-brain barrier. And what you're doing with antidepressants, antipsychotics, anti-anxietals, sleeping pills, is you're basically giving yourself a chemical lobotomy. They calcify the third eye so that you will not feel anymore. That's the whole point, is to disconnect you. So a lot of the things that we're knowing is that even these go back to not only infancy, childhood, even into the womb, and even if you've got and go into the idea of possibly molecular memory that's being stored, or what you think is past lives. So again, being and dealing with the brain is not new. That's why it's so important to keep as much Wi-Fi and dirty electricity and EMF away from you. But this is where we know that the olfaction, or the smell right now, that is the closest thing to getting into the limbic system that bypasses the wiring. And that way you can work on basically memory and short-term memory. So that's why they started giving people, let's say students, actually peppermint, and their memory increased 28%, or rosemary and things like this. You know, even people that were in there scripturally, they all talked about this here, that what they talked about, and if one goes into the scriptural part of it, where they talked in here that basically that the saints and the offerings would be put upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. And some people will say that's your cranial nerves, but wherever we want to go. But the smoke of the incense, i.e. short for like frankincense, also came with the prayers of the saint and ascended up or crossed what they'll say. Some people think the blood-brain barrier, or the amygdala. When you cut that, will look like the angel's hands or the wings. So there are many ways, from scripturally to astrotheologically to however you want to look at it, that basically people use this. I think there was like over 200 references when I actually studied some of those original and ancient texts in here. So again, even if nothing else, using them just to get into a quiet, more meditation type of a state, because most people have got basically monkey mind or monkey chatter. And so this is one way to really, really calm it down. And so that's one of the things I really wanted to show you that is really, really important here. Okay. And so all these different things here is how we start relaxing with smells that make us calm down. And for some people, it might be cinnamon. It might be things like vanilla. But usually you're antidepressant. So I want you to see all the different things here. So when we start talking about anxiety, blue spruce, Idaho spruce, not methylene blue. See what we're using here? It says blue spruce, Roman chamomile, blue again, ylang ylang, frankincense, clary sage. Those are all pine, different things along there, cystisus. So all of these can be put together. So whether you're feeling anxiety or agitation or need to concentrate or you're bored, but again, those are all the best ones. You can see for almost every kind of emotional challenge, there are a bunch of oils or groups of essential oils that have always been used for this. Keep going. It's there. Irritability. Same thing we're doing for sexual abuse and ritual abuse, all those things in here. And that's where we get into the sense of cleansing. So I really wanted you to take a look at this. I'm leaving you guys the links there. And all these are so, so important when you start looking at the cleansing. Because having even one organ overloaded or toxin, that's why I said do a liver gallbladder flush. The minute you feel depression, that caffeine. And here's where it talks about the importance of testing your pH and to start cleansing routinely, because that is the difference. And if you don't want to fast, using lemonade. There's even a lemonade recipe in here. There are enema recipes in here. The other thing, they talk about colon hydrotherapy, because you're removing old issues stuck in the system. Whether you may realize it or not, we will collect that as negative energy. And so one of the things too, a lot of people have never talked about it, is also using enzyme therapy. So using different enzymes, whether it's just regular digestive enzymes or serrapeptase or nattokinase, not only does it help break down clots, you guys, and clean the blood, it also helps break down those foods or proteins or different things like that to clean out. And again, heavy metals, as I talked about, aluminum, mercury, all those toxicities are in here. And this is where it really becomes very paramount to getting your diet back into place, or live it as we call it. Because one of the things in here, I wanted you to see, what is the pH in here? You can see the pH of these foods. There's alfalfa. It's almost plus 30. Why do we suggest people go into greens? Because the alfalfa, baking soda is 12.5, but alfalfa is 30, just about 30. So you can start seeing all those things. So what you do, the more acidic you eat, like eggs, minus 22, in here. You start looking at coffee, minus 25. We start looking at things like, beef and bread. All these things that keep toxicities and acidity are usually the ones we try and get you to change. So I wanted you to look at it from that point of view. I think that's a really cool way to kind of look at that. Because most people, when we took nursing and medicine, there was no nutrition. So now we see the correlation is totally between what nutrition is. You are what you eat, and you are what you absorb. So that's part of the thing in here. So I just wanted to leave that with you today. So we just did some really cool sounds in the background, and hopefully you're enjoying some of these in the background, because I am. One of the things in here, I have a whole section here on post-traumatic stress. So a lot of people don't realize that. Okay, so we have made libraries, and I'll just show you the amount. It's mind-blowing how many different frequencies I have for post-traumatic stress. So we're going to put all the anxiety, all the post-traumatic stress, and I'm going to give you about 300 frequencies today that you're going to be able to enjoy, okay, in here. So one of the things in here is to have that brain energetic remedies, and that's one of the things that's coming up here today. So as I type in here and put, let's say, post-traumatic stress disorder, I want you to see all the different things I have here to do with brain, resetting, trauma, post-traumatic stress, anything that might be causing you problems. I have pages of them. And between that, if I put them all in, let's put them all in just for gigglies. I haven't done this for a long time. So we're going to put everything in here, all the different brain hemispheres, cognitive things, tapping, all the different kinds of therapies you can think of. Homeopathy can be in here as well. We haven't gotten too much into that today, but cellular freedom technique, post-traumatic stress, all the solutions. Traumeal, Bach flowers, trommels, all those things in there. And usually when you're doing tinctures, some of it can be, but we don't worry too much because it's really quite small. You're only taking a few drops. So right now, get this. I put 299 frequencies. We're going to play on here. And now what I want to add in is I'm going to add in all the essential oils. So right now we're going to put all those wonderful essential oils in. Okay, so let's open up all the oils that we have. Stress away, pain, all these things in here, inspiration, having faith, having all of that. We're going to put all these incredible essential oils in. So now we've got 370 frequencies. So let's play this just quietly in the background while we're there, right? So let's all listen to this for a few minutes. Ready? And this is going to help start settling out the gamma and everything else in here. Remember your GABA, all those neurotransmitters. So when someone comes to me, right, and we talk to you, one of the things, whether you want to do it the old-fashioned way where I have to use a pendulum, right, or use the biofeedback or go in through what we're doing, one of the most important things, there's a whole section here on mental, on mind, by the way. So we're going to look at those flower essences. You just asked about that. So walnut, gorse, red chestnut, all those things are used for trauma as well. One of the things is the brain anatomy. One of the things I look at people here is how is the brain functioning? Have you had head injuries? Do you remember having a head injury? What are you going to remember in here? Then we can go into the EEG part. So you can look at things with different kind of systems or biofeedbacks and look at the alpha, look at the theta, look at whatever we're, having to deal with. And more importantly are the neurotransmitters. Epinephrine, right? Glutamate, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, GABA, and also histamine. So if you're having an allergic response, you're going to get depressed. It's going to be a shock to your system. So all those things are par and course. And so what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at all the different herbs and oils that client will look at or require. So if you're low in these minerals and vitamins, we need to bring them back up to normal here, right? If you've got an infection off the charts, well, we need to look at that too. So all these things can affect that. So what we're going to do, we're going to go in and we are going to play all those incredible frequencies right now and see how you do with that. Okay, so let's go in here and we're going to play that and see what you notice here after a couple minutes. Okay, so let's tune that up as well. Okay, so use these things, take some nice deep breaths, and part of the thing is the meditation. So we're going to go and we're going to start a little bit of breathing right now. So while we have this playing quietly in the background, which you're still picking it up, okay, on the subconscious level, it's still there at a minute level. Right now, what we're going to do, I'm going to have you close your eyes with me. Just get relaxed, open the spine up, and we're going to start breathing, but we're going to go back into doing breath work. So again, most people don't breathe properly, okay? When you're tight, you have depression. Just right now as you're breathing, where are you breathing? Are you breathing abdominally or are you breathing up here? Where's your breath? Most people feel it here. Okay, you're not feeling it down here where we need to. So we're going to go into that for just a minute. So what we're going to do is a 4-4-4-4 breath. I like doing it because it's simple. It's 4. Okay, we're going to inhale for 4 through the nose. We're going to hold it for 4. We're going to blow it out through the mouth for 4. And then we're going to relax for 4. So in other words, let's do it now. We're going to close our eyes and we're just going to do a couple rounds of this. And what a lot of people will do, you can either put your hand on the chest, okay, left hand on your heart, and you can put the other one down here on your abdomen. Okay, we're going to get into sync here. So what's going to happen, you're going to take a deep breath in through your nose. And I'm not expanding here. I'm expanding here in the stomach. I'm going out like a balloon. Breath of fire. So deep breath in again. Expand the stomach. Hold it. And blow it out through the mouth. So if you've taken belly dancing or tribal dancing, you know what I'm talking about. You're starting to undulate. Okay, you need to undulate to get that, right? Abdomen going. So again, in, and when you breathe in again, hold it and out. When you do this for a minute or two, that's all it takes. Because you can usually be higher than a kite. So my thing is to actually have this playing, or again, having my headphones. Biofeedback is not just about listening to frequencies. It's about running sound waves. Again, 40 hertz, 40 hertz. This is where you're going to get the brain into entrainment. Okay, you put essential oils on one, put it on the other. You're trying to create coherence and balance, right? To the 0 point. So those are some of the different things I have for this evening. So, and again, we're going to get into some vibrant juices and stuff like that. So one of the things too is eating and juicing for depression, anxiety, things along that line. So again, your first ones are going to be things like Master Cleanser, or some people are doing black lemonade these days. They really like that. But juicing for depression. Has anyone ever looked that up other than me? Okay. It's out there. Okay. Always go down to the images. Like, we can take a look at that and just see what's going on there. Because a lot of people neglect that. Because depression is also associated with the amount of oxidative stress, inflammation. So when you're actually using different things like citrus fruits and berries and dark leafy green things that have lots of stuff like folate, B6 and 12, which are necessary for amino acids to convert into stuff that will now make and regulate your serotonin, your happy hormone. And then I'm going to get into actually some chocolate for you. So we're going to focus on some of these things here. And so using things like also adding a little bit of turmeric root or ginger, or you can actually use powdered. So even if you want to juice something, you can go in and just actually use some of these different things as anti-inflammatories. But this is another really great way that people don't think of, or just making some lemonade or something like that. So do take a look at that. So when we are going to be doing something along that line, let's take a look at those juices, right? And I wasn't joking. Look at a lot of the stuff. You notice most of them are juices. There's your, and again, organic. You don't need a whole bunch of chemicals, Monsanto mainlining. So look at a lot of these in here. That juicing, you will feel totally different after 3 days. Absolutely. So it doesn't matter what it is, but the more you go into citruses and stuff like that, the more you're going to feel better. Now, one of the incredible things as well here is actually raw chocolate. It's not just about having chocolate, it's what does it do to you? So raw cacao is basically one of the best things for fighting depression. It has something called P. It's a phenylamine. I'm going to actually show you this because most people don't realize it's not only about reducing depression, it's about improving the mood and lowering the anxiety. So I don't need to go into a whole bunch of the bioactive chemicals and stuff like that, but it does not usually have caffeine. It has this theobromine. So again, you could take it in the morning or at lunch. You don't want to do it just right before bed. So what we found is that people doing cacao, not cocoa, cacao is raw. You can take the beans, you can take it iced, you can take it hot, however you want to take it, or just take the nibs and stuff like that, it makes a big, big difference. And one of the top people in the world that wrote one of the best books ever is called Naked Chocolate, and it's all in there, or superfoods. So those are one of the things in here I want you to take a look at. So on here, how many people know how to make a really quick chocolate? How many people have got raw cacao? Put chocolate in the chat room if you've got that. So those are one of the things we want to take a look at is, again, let's take a look at that cacao here. Okay. How does chocolate come? It comes off of a tree. It looks like an almond. It looks all white inside. And in there is the cacao pods. Did you know originally only women were allowed to do this? Kind of funny, hey? So let's take a look at that. So why were women only allowed to do this? Because it was considered to be a sacred food, and you could actually use cocoa beans for a dowry, by the way. They were all worth about 25 cents in today's terms. But these are one of the most important things that you can get because of the chemical properties of it. And so in there, it was considered to be with what they call the bliss hormone, or the happy hormone, or the love hormone. It was one of the only things in the world, and it was one of the highest things in antioxidant here. So this is stuff that we need to go into because it's actually, most people don't know, it's one of the highest things in magnesium. And over 80% of people that have depression, anxiety, and stuff like that are magnesium deficient. And there's 7 different types of it. But this is the things that we need to look at. And even Bernard Jensen, all the stuff to do with the heart. You know, you need to have that magnesium and potassium and really important things. And this is why they combined a lot of actually, did you know they combined a lot of actually chocolate or raw cacao with, get this, cayenne pepper to open up the heart. So it would go directly to the brain like a vasodilator. So all those things that you need for fatty acids and stuff like this was amazing. So that's why we want to take a look at this. So all the things that you would see for addictions, aggression, alcoholism, anorexia, asthma, attention deficit, even to cancer, all these things, disorientation, diabetes, hyperacidity, it all helped with these type of things. So I really suggest people take a look at that. Absolutely amazing. And then the antioxidants, this is one of the highest antioxidants in the world, by the way. Most people aren't aware of that. So one of the things it has, it's called P, which is your phenylalanine. And that basically, as I said, is called, we call it the love chemical, the love bug. And so the brain releases that also when you are sensually aroused, you know, in there, or sexually aroused. And it's actually at a peak level when you're at orgasm. So one of the things that really helps with people, with all my clients, is I get them into taking this in there because it has P and also the anandamide, which is a bliss chemical. These are the neurotransmitters that basically are been found in there that actually make us feel better. So ananda is a very Sanskrit word and it means bliss. So the bliss chemical is definitely in there. And these are similar to what you see actually in THC or cannabis. So a lot of people, if you don't want to get into that part, you can actually just mix some hemp seeds or hemp parts in there. So those are some of the really incredible things overlooked, just a wealth of information. And there's a really great book. It's called Naked, not Gun, but Naked Chocolate. And it's by David Wolf. Excellent book in here. So if you want to look at the book called Naked Chocolate, these are the kind of things that when you know how to do this properly, then you will actually see you can have it for breakfast. So there is one of the best books I've ever seen, written by an acquaintance of mine, an old-time friend, was David Avocado Wolf. Okay, so one of the most important things is how do we make, you know, a smoothie or something like that, or how do we make these very easy? I can make actually freezer chocolate recipes in just literally a couple minutes. So that's something else that, you know, you might want to take a look at. So in here, let's take a look at our naked chocolate, shall we? There's the naked chocolate, you guys. Isn't that incredible? So now we're going to look at, the different components and stuff like that to what is actually raw chocolate. Totally different. Totally different. Okay. It's not cacao, like I said, or how to make raw chocolate bars. This is the kind of thing I want you to go in, and if you want, you can take it in the powder form, or you can take it into the nib form, or make some truffles. The key is not to cook it. How to make raw bark. A lot of this stuff you can see the difference out here with raw chocolate bars. These are not Kit Kats and stuff like that. A lot of times I will do and add superfoods to it. You can add your turmeric to it. You can add your goji berries to it. You can add your maca to it. So I use chocolate as a medicine, as a delivery system for stress. And I also have, if you can imagine, we have raw chocolate essential oil. These are things that you can make up within seconds. Or again, if you're going to go into it, you can do it into the powder form and make a smoothie. Okay, very easy to add into that. So do take a look at some of these. Very, very important. We're talking about going back into using, and I'll just go back to the essential oils again, but the essential oils for depression. Okay, all of these are very easy to find, as you go into each one of these. And as I said, there are so many things that are so easy and so economical to get. And a lot of times I just go on, and even if you don't have a kit, get a small kit here. There are many different ones out here. You would be amazed what this does. A couple drops a day, or putting, let's say, something as simple as a peppermint essential oil into a glass of water. Okay, how simple is that? Adding it to your water, adding it to your spritzer, spraying it around, all these type of things. And then let's say I want to go in and do those simple things like a facial herbal steam, right? A lot of people, like I said, they don't think about the simplest of things here. Steam is actually one of the best ways here to go in and change the environment, change the biofield. It really doesn't matter which ones you put in. Even if you just put in a couple loose teas, just looking at this looks actually pleasant. There again, there's something called blue butterfly, okay, or blue tansy. So a lot of people, when they're going, well, what about methylene blue? Well, how about looking at some blue tansy, duplanzy essential oil, or herbs or flowers? Okay, these are out there. These are known to be into those spectrums instead of methylene blue. There's a blue butterfly, on here. How do you do butterfly? Okay, blue pea butterflies. Have you guys ever seen that? It's out there. It's butterfly pea, and you can put it even a couple drops as tinctures or into your tea as well. These are other acceptable things we have found going in there rather than doing methylene blue. Okay, another one is also when you've got into, there's Roman chamomile and there's German chamomile. But these again will have a bluish color a lot of times. Okay, so there's Roman chamomile and then there's a German one as well. Okay, all different things here. So what we want to do is when we look at the oils that cross the blood-brain barrier, cedarwood essential oil, cedarwood, sandalwood, all of these will cross the blood-brain barrier and make a big change. We've got frankincense essential oil. All of these, again, people burn them for resins, but these work really, really great. And one of the favorite ones I absolutely love, and it's so economical, one of my favorite things in the world, antidepressant, anti-anxiety, is something called lime. And that's why even doing the lime and making limeades, things like this, they make a big, big, big difference. That's why people were saying even with all the things that happened with the injection and the corona stuff, right? What were they all saying? Well, go get pine essential oil or pine needle tea. You can go outside and just make some teas. You can also add your pine essential oil. So again, these are the things that cross what you call the blood-brain barrier. And that blood-brain barrier is huge. That's why the oils work. Okay, and that's where we're doing this. So I want people to think of too, as we're going into this, when you get into the pharma stuff, let's say we're just looking at something, it doesn't matter if it's Prozac or whatever it is, it really doesn't. Most people have never looked at the side effects. Antidepressants and all of those things have got side effects. It doesn't matter. All of them cause actually brain damage. So when you go into it and you say, what are those side effects of those drugs? What are the side effects of ivermectin? What are the side effects of methylene blue? What is the side effect? All of these forums in here, all of them tell you all the different things that you should know, because it's going to do that. It's just to what degree are you going to be noticing? So when you get into all these different, again, 50,000 names for all of these different things that they made, okay, fainting, blood pressure, serious stuff, hives, my gosh, you're going into organ failure and stuff like that, chills, anxiety. That's really neat. They give you a pill for anxiety, which causes anxiety, confusion, diarrhea, difficulty concentrating. What it does is it blocks the third eye. It blocks and calcifies the pineal gland, just like any other heavy metal. Seizuring. All of these things are known. Abnormal dreams, changes in menstruation, skin, hair loss, alopecia. So guess what? These are the most common things. And that's what we see they're putting the children on. It's absolutely insane. I never did figure it out. But anyway, those are some of the very simple things that you can do at home anytime. And there we go. We've heard a little bit. We've enjoyed a little bit. I think those are very simple things that people can go at home and do. And one of the most interesting things I want to do is something called Master Cleanse. And I don't mean you have to go on it 100%. But Master Cleanse, it's been known that you can use lemonade or limeade. So let's take a look. What is the Master Cleanser? Okay. It's something that's really simple. It's not rocket science. All these things are so inexpensive. This is what blows me, is getting baking soda and baking soda water, things like it into here. So let's take a look at what this Master Cleanser is. And we will go through the whole thing here. So you don't know what it is. There are books. It was done by Stanley Burroughs. His protege after that was Tom Wolowishin. Okay. I had all these books. Easy enough to do. What was it supposed to do? Well, it was supposed to, interesting. That's not the one I want. Does it clean the liver? Do you lose weight on it? People have been known to do that. You don't have to do it 100%. So let's go back into images. What is the Master Cleanser here? Okay, it's basically the lemonade diet. Okay, so it's not rocket science here. What are we looking at? Organic lemons or limes, maple syrup or molasses, or you could just go to stevia, some water and a little bit of Celtic salt. You can also add a little bit of cayenne pepper in here. So these are really simple things to go in and make. So if we wanted to get the actual recipe here, okay, like I said, you can make up the recipe for the whole day. How do you do this? Again, pretty simple on here. So it's basically going to be, there we go. And again, you're just going to use even 1 or 2 glasses a day. It's not hard. So again, also using salt water flushes. This is why it's so important to actually take a little bit of warm water with some teaspoons of Celtic sea salt or whatever kind you're using other than Windsor. Okay. But a lot of times just doing this recipe here of doing 1 cup of water, 1 to 2 teaspoons of lemon or lime, some maple syrup, molasses, or as I said, stevia, and using a little bit of cayenne pepper, and start drinking this. This is one of the best things. People will notice a huge change after 2-3 days. This is a great thing to replace those stupid vitamin and smart waters, instead of kombucha and stuff like this. This is really, really powerful stuff. And again, what I do is I always add a couple drops of lemon essential oil in there and spike it up to the next level. So again, one of the things we're looking at is where are people in the levels of consciousness? So when you look at the levels of consciousness, right, it's obviously down there, right? It's not high. So where are we going to go with this? The levels of consciousness here, whether we talk about Hawkins charts or power versus force or whatever we want to look at it, there are so many different ideas people have on what is this level of consciousness. It's frequency. And what is frequency? That means if it's a frequency, it means we measure it. How are you going to measure it? With the tuning fork? No, you need to have a frequency device that's able to measure it. And that's why I said there are so many different types, of looking at this. So one of the things is we go back into the levels of consciousness, and some people go, oh, we can look at power versus force here on this. And as we move up the levels of consciousness and we look at these different scales, people start going, oh my gosh, this is insane here. What's going on? Right? Let's take a look at this. Okay, so apparently this is also how people used to describe heaven and hell, by the way, and purgatory and all that sort of stuff. Different ways, or victimhood, you want to stay in that. But once we move up to the frequencies, that is color. The color is frequency. The thing is measured in hertz. And so one of the things to go in here is when you see those things like anxiety, depression, you are obviously in that lower vibration. You are below, moving into a higher enlightenment where you have peace and relaxation. So in order to get into these states, and there, again, it comes with vibration. Vibration, again, is measured. So we don't want to be in where that guilt, fear, apathy, shame, anger is, below 200 hertz. We want to be up in there. That's why when we measure with the genius, we are measuring basically anything that's low under 200 and anything that's in excess over about 600. Right? So we want to be into that balance point here. And those are some of the things as we move up that vibrational. It has to do with color, vibration, and frequency. And so, as I said, with a lot of people, if you can get in here and start looking at the levels of consciousness, however you want to look at it, 9, 12, 15, I don't really care. But as we go into these levels here, we need to raise the vibration. I want you to see that color. Now, I want you to remember that color spectrum from red to purple. That is basically what the litmus paper is for that you're going to use at home for pH and for the urine testing. Okay? And most of these come about 5.5 to 9. Okay? Doesn't really matter which one you get, but I want you to see where you need to be up here. It's huge. And that correlates basically because the scale actually goes, if you do litmus paper, it goes from 0 to 14. I'm not concerned about the 0 part, the 14. I'm only concerned where you should be normally. And normally should be, as I said, 7.5 to 8. So however you want to get one of these strips, knock yourself out. But that's the only way you will truly know. And that is the difference between happiness and depression. That's half of it right there. If we would keep people that were basically alkaline, we wouldn't have a problem. Okay. And you would remove a lot of the stuff in here, like these psychiatric and allopathic bullshit stuff, right? Putting children on Ritalin and all sorts of stuff. So it starts with you. So I hope some of these things have been really helpful for you today. And if you have any questions about depression, anxiety, children, what are the actual ways to wean people off? Those are things that I've done for 25, 30 years successfully. And I'm not doing it. I'm giving you a new recipe book. And if those clients choose to do it, most people are off their meds. I've seen people off actually even insulin and stuff within under a month. If you choose to do some of those things, that is probably one of the better ways to do that. You got to start putting in these things on there. And, a lot of people, like I said, they couldn't figure out why I was telling people to do enemas, because your enemas go all around and they go through each chakra. That's the direct feed line in. So one of the best antidepressants I've ever done to people is actually doing baking soda and herbal and aromatherapy, actually enemas. All you have to do is put in, get this, just like you would have a little bit of water here, just that much herbs with a little bit of baking soda and some lavender and frankincense, and used it either up into a bulb or literally even as a suppository. You know, those things were done, or just a little enema bag. That was enough to do it. You know, you'd be amazed how quick it works, much quicker than popping pills. I mean, thank you for joining me. I'm Karenann Lusick McDonald. So if you want to have any questions, or any of this stuff kind of resonates with you, or you want to further investigate it, please let me know. If you want to try out some of these different things with biofeedback, I have at least a dozen you can try out, and none of them have AI. There's lots that don't. There's only one that you have to pay for extra if you want to have it actually make your own report. But, you know, if you don't want to have graph reports, that's up to you. But there are a lot of different things in here. And one of the other ones I wanted to mention, there are very basic sound generators in here. And I have one in here it's called depression. Actually, you can see I have a whole thing of depression. Well, I don't, but the machine does. These are all for depression, okay, and anxiety and neurosis and phobias, also post-traumatic stress are in here. So I am just going to pick them up, and let's take a look. Even postpartum depression is in here. I didn't get too much into that, but let's listen to this for a few seconds, shall we? Okay, we're just going to pick 20 seconds here. We'll put it up here, and we're going to play that. So that's a very simple thing to do. And it's going through, this is similar to a 528, so you might go through a whole entire spectrum of stuff. So tell me what you feel. Tell me if you're feeling any tingling or anything in there. So one of the things as well, here's one for postpartum depression. Is that cool? Is this not easier than going in and doing all those terrible things? Okay, so this one's going through 10 different frequencies, by the way. Pretty neat, hey? So it's going through 0.5 hertz, 528 hertz, and it will go through a series, 10 different series, and it's called what we call in there a sweep. So a sweep is when we put in multiple, like think of it like playing 30 tuning forks at once. So we're sweeping through each one of them, and then we can regulate the time that we need. So this is 0.85 hertz now it's going through. So those are different things in here that, you know, you might want to take a look at. So we just looked at depression, but we also have things that say if someone has post-traumatic stress disorder in here, here's another one that we have for post-traumatic stress as well. And there again. So for almost all of these, we have something. You know, there's another one if people have had anxiety. So again, you're using things to vibrate. And again, it's meant to be used, as I said, with headphones or earbuds. You know, if people haven't been jabbed, then of course, you know, these are amazing to work with. The idea is to get the body into sync, right? So as you're trying to get balance, it's actually a 3 thing. These are actually work on what's called trinary computers. This is not your computer. This is not your AI stuff. These are special quantumized trinary trivector computers to do this. Okay, so this is not just, you know, what you're listening to on 528 on some YouTube. So those are the differences in there. So I wanted to actually bring that to your attention on that. And one of the other things too, like I said, we can scan the body for all these different acupressure and acupuncture points in here. Okay, this is huge because depending where these blocked are, these are going to affect. That's why I said, look at the liver gallbladder flush. Your liver gallbladder goes all the way up here, guys. That alone, just cleaning out one of these cleanses is enough to make a huge, huge difference for people. This is kind of like moving forward, and this is stuff holding you back, like your past lives. So there are different ways that we look at someone like this, in there. And I think it's pretty amazing, like I said. And we have the ability to use technology, so why not? I mean, I'm all about excitement for doing this. This makes my life much easier. So anyway, if it's something that you want to take a look at or you want to pass on to someone, feel free. And then one of the other things too, like I said, if you want to have a mini consult, I will put my email of clanmother13 in there again. I don't know if you guys have all been to my quick little, I have like where I can do even 10, 15 minutes for free. And then if you want to go, on that, it's very reasonable. And doing stuff by gift barter and donations as well. So this is for the appointment. So if you have any questions, you can look at me and get a hold of me there, and we can figure out something. I'm going to give a course in there. One of the things you might be interested in is to take a look at this different one. And I'm going to mention it because, again, I think it's really important that people do take a look at what we have available. And I think people short circuit themselves when they haven't tried some of these things that are out for free. So like I said, that Rife one in there, we also have an emotional one, and we have a mental one. I don't usually, dwell that much into it because I have one that does virtually everything. But if you wanted to start with something, that might be another way to go, in looking at that, because it certainly is worth downloading and playing with it for 4 or 5 days. You're not going to do anything. You're not going to hurt yourself by listening to some musical stuff, but let's take a look at that. And in here as well, we can go in. And like I said, I have an entire set of albums. So anything I've talked to you about in here, whether you want to look at sound playing or soundless or enemas or doing things like that, or if you really want to go to someone else and want to do biofeedback, take a look at getting some live blood cell done. Go see someone that's a professional that knows what they're doing, that is based on nutrition as well and stuff on there. But if you take a look at it, this might be a wealth of information for you. So one of the things in here is if you go in, and I'm just going to show you here, if it's something that you want to try out, there's a whole section in here totally for free. And it says download all these links. So if it's something you want to do and take a look at the emotional one or the mental one or the Rife one, like I said, there's a wealth of stuff here. You can even just put sounds on your phone and put your glass of water on there. Okay. There's a whole thing about water, affirmations, and mantras. Okay. So like I said, if you don't want to, put yourself to it, you can put just the glass of water and drink the water. Or put a crystal and put your crystal in your pocket, or do that. So there are a lot of things to do with, motivation. There are a lot of things like I just showed you that, right? So if it's something you want to try for a week, I'm just offering this for free. Otherwise, if you want to get a hold of me, you certainly can. So there we go. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week. If you have any suggestions or anything you'd like, please let me know. Take care.